Kia's second generation Sorrento has changed with the times. Once a no-nonsense SUV off-roader, now a more tarmac-friendly family package that has been redesigned to include 7 seats. The idea is to attract road-orientated crossover buyers as well as traditional SUV 4x4 customers. As a result, many will need to give this package a second look. Back in 2003, in the days before the Kia conglomerate was selling more cars than the Ford Motor Company, the brand introduced an SUV called the Sorrento. It was a smartly styled compact 4x4 that was bigger and more affordable than most of its rivals. Now, looking back, it was ponderous and clunky with 5 seats where there should have been space for 7. But at the time, it was so much better than anything that Kia had yet produced that people like me wondered just how good a second generation version might prove to be. In 2010, we had our answer. While those familiar with the Amalfi Coast might still feel this Sorrento to be lacking an R, a glance at the spec sheet doesn't immediately suggest it to be lacking anything else. Now, the old car had a tough, rugged, separate chassis of the sort beloved by those regularly using its 3-ton towing rating to haul trailers up slippery slopes with the aid of the low-range gearbox. The problem is, hardly anyone in the SUV sector buys vehicles like that anymore, and with great respect to Kia, those that do wouldn't see this South Korean brand as being their first choice. So the Sorrento has been sent to finishing school, cutting all links with its utilitarian past. So under the fresh and slippery Californian design studio 7-seat shape, the crude body-on-frame construction, the low-range gearbox and the live rear axle have all been dumped in favour of a more car-like monocoque approach, a super smooth 6-speed high-range only auto and fancy multi-link rear suspension more suited to Surbiton than Snowdon. Everything, in fact, the modern SUV customer wants. Or is it? Let's find out. Now, Kia may have put in a lot of work beneath the sleek bodywork of this second generation model, but that's nothing compared to the effort that its engineers have put in under the bonnet. Now, virtually all Sorrentos come with this high-tech 2.2 litre diesel engine that packs a 194 brake horsepower punch. That's a lot of power for an engine of this size. After all, the 3-litre engine in Toyota's Land Cruiser manages only 171 brake horsepower. This Kia's unit has more torque too, 421 Newton meters of it. The same can't be said of the alternative Sorrento power plant, a 174 brake horsepower 2.4 litre petrol unit that for some reason the importers also think is worth offering. On the move, you won't be expecting too much of a big, heavy, diesel-powered Kia SUV, particularly if, as in this case, it has an automatic gearbox, in which case you might be a little bit surprised. For one thing, it isn't that heavy, the total weight coming in well under the 2-ton mark, which is one reason why the Rest of 60 Sprint is dispatched in a relatively pacey 9 seconds dead. It's also nice that if you use the manual mode in this 6-speed automatic gearbox, it'll hold on to individual gears so that you can drive it properly. It's also pleasing to find that the steering is reasonably accurate and body roll is fairly well controlled thanks to the more car-like monocoque body. It even rides reasonably well thanks to the clever multi-link rear suspension. All this is relative, of course, to the modest standards of the SUV class. An executive saloon, this isn't, and the bluff shape means a certain amount of wind noise at higher speeds. Still, in the unlikely event that you owned a first-generation Sorrento model, you simply won't believe the progress that's been made. As for off-road ability, well, you have to remember that Kia has effectively reclassified this vehicle. No longer SUV, but CUV, which apparently stands for Crossover Utility Vehicle. You and I will better understand it as being simply a more road-orientated 4x4. Or at least it is if you don't go for one of the basic entry-level front-wheel drive only versions. Even if you do choose the four-wheel drive option for your Sorrento, Kia shamelessly admits that your car will be nothing like as good off-road as the first generation model. With a breakover angle of just 17 degrees and without a separate ladder frame chassis and a low range gearbox, it could never be. never mind a reduced ride height that sees it riding 10mm lower to the ground. Perhaps more importantly for potential owners, towing capacity has been cut by a whole tonne in manual form. But before you classify this car along with feebly capable crossovers like Nissan Qashqais and Peugeot 3008s, bear in mind that the spec does include a locking centre differential able to apportion torque 50-50 between front and rear, and that's really useful if you're absolutely stuck in the muck, plus standard hill descent control and worthwhile approach and departure angles of 25 and 23 degrees respectively. I always thought the first generation Sorrento to be pretty smartly styled, and though this Mark II model's looks won't stop you in your tracks, ex-Audi penman Peter Schreier has certainly produced a neat piece of design. The clamshell bonnet that curves around the front above the integrated headlamps and front grille gives a more dynamic look that's complemented by the larger front overhang and the more steeply raked windscreen. It's certainly all more golf club than gymkhana. Given the need to incorporate 7 seats, a 95mm length increase over the Mark I model is hardly surprising, and you certainly feel it in terms of interior space. Now let's start with the middle row here. The first thing you notice even before you sat down is that getting in is easier. The designers have lowered the hip point by 37mm and the floor by a similar amount. Once inside, there's comfortable room for 2 adults and possible room for 3 on short to mid-length journeys. Now, unfortunately, unlike some rivals, you can't slide the seats back and forth to prioritise legroom or cabin space behind, but you can recline these seats for greater comfort on longer journeys. As for the third row, well, you won't get one at all on the entry-level version, which is 5-seat only. But where 6th and 7th seats are fitted, Kia reckons that the occupant space is best in class. A tug on a single strap is all that's necessary to pull these berths into place. Once erect, getting to them is made easier by the way that this passenger side seat double folds. Now, once in situ, you'll find that they're really intended for children, but a couple of adults would be fine here on a short journey. As for luggage space, well, it's 15% up on the Mark I model. Not something you'd appreciate, of course, when all 7 seats are in place, when you've got just 111 litres of room, though there is this extra underfloor compartment to keep valuables away from prying eyes. Use the vehicle as a 5-seater, and there's 531 litres, that's 96 litres more than before. Drop the 60-40 split middle row and there's 1,525 litres on offer. At the wheel, you sit high up with a commanding view of the road, and with height adjustment for these seats and height and reach adjustment for the steering wheel, it's easy to find the ideal driving position. Now, it's all much smarter and higher quality than we've seen in Kias of the past, although the hard, shiny plastics that you get in the middle of the dash here are rather out of keeping with Kia's upmarket aspirations. Better are the smartly recessed dials, instrument clusters with their chromed rings, and the lovely recessed lighting that you find under the door handles. List pricing suggests that you'll be paying somewhere between £20,000 and £30,000 for your Kia Sorento, though the bottom end of that pricing span only gets you the entry-level 5-seat petrol version that most buyers will rightly ignore. So in reality, you're probably looking at a starting figure of around £23,000 for your Sorento with 7 seats and a diesel engine, the form in which it really works best. You're looking at another £1,000 if you want four-wheel drive, and there's a hefty £1,500 premium if you want the super smooth automatic gearbox. Amongst Kia's rivals, only sister company Hyundai can provide you their Santa Fe in a 7-seat diesel SUV guise that gives you the choice of 2 or 4-wheel drive, but though it would save you about £1,000, it is an older design. As far as other 7-seat diesel family SUVs are concerned, this car is priced at about the same level as a Citroën C-Crosser or a Peugeot 4007, but both of those cars have about 40 brake horsepower less. Under the bonnet, assuming that you ignore the entry-level 174 brake horsepower 2.4 litre petrol engine, as nearly all buyers will, you'll be looking at this 194 brake horsepower 2.2 litre diesel and deciding whether or not to match it with automatic transmission and or four-wheel drive. If you've heavy loads to carry, you might also want to consider ticking the box and paying £500 extra for the self-levelling suspension. Whichever Sorrento variant you choose, you should find it to be well equipped. Standard kit includes power for the windows and mirrors, alloy wheels, air conditioning and a decent quality CD stereo with a socket for your MP3 player. On this top version there's a panorama glass roof, the front part of which can be tilted for extra ventilation or slid back completely to allow you uninterrupted views. Safety-wise, this car was awarded an NCAP 5-star rating, and you can see why. You get ESC, that's electronic stability control. Then you get DBC, that's downhill brake control if you're on a steep descent, and HAC, hill start assist control to help you at steep uphill junctions. There's also twin front and side airbags and full-length curtain airbags, plus anti-whiplash head restraints. The 2.2 litre diesel engine promises impressive economy and emissions figures considering its hefty power output. Expect around 43 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle, and emissions are between 171 and 174 grams per kilometre, depending on your choice between 2 and 4-wheel drive. Kia's impressive transferable 7-year warranty will also be a factor in convincing many buyers, and insurance groups, well, they're reasonably affordable, ranging between 12 and 13. So what exactly is this car? A proper SUV 4x4? Many brands would call it that. A crossover or family estate with 4x4 styling cues? Oh, it's a bit more than that. Maybe Kia's own description, a crossover utility vehicle, does suit it better. But at the end of the day, how you categorise the Sorrento doesn't really matter that much. What's important is that A, it's a huge step forward from its rather crude predecessor, and B, that it offers a surprisingly desirable 7-seat, all-year, all-weather family transport package. It's not quite as affordable as we've tended to expect Kias to be in the past, but then this is a far, far better car than anything the South Korean brand has yet bought us in this sector. And no sub £25,000 7-seat diesel European rival can get near the output of its impressive 2.2 litre diesel engine. How to sum up then? Sleek, pretty, composed on the road, affordable to run, and with loads of space inside. The Sorrento is all these things. It is, in short, however you end up categorising it, a car eminently well suited to the modern world.